Yeah. Good evening to all the viewers. Today we have Sunniva Brynnel from Sweden. She is a Swedish accordionist, vocalist, and composer within jazz, improvised music, and folk music. She has toured extensively in Sweden and USA and performed in many other countries. So, welcome, Sunniva.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and firstly, we would like to know, all our viewers would like to know about how you picked up the accordion and then about the 7 generations of music that has been in your family.
Mm. So I started music when I was very young. My mother is a singer, and she would take me to festivals and performances and so. And I was a little child, this big, and I would
Yeah.
sit with them when they sang, and I would sing with her on stage. And then I was 4. I picked up the piano, and I tried many instruments, but the piano stuck with me from my childhood. And then I kept wanting to have a portable instrument, or an instrument that you could really call your own and take everywhere and fly with it and travel with it. And especially because a lot of folk music in Europe happens in pubs and in people's homes and in more informal venues, and even out beneath a tree you will jam. So I
Ah,
was 20, and I picked up the piano accordion because I thought, oh, it has piano keys, so it must be easy for a pianist, right? But it
yeah.
wasn't so easy for a pianist, so I had to really abandon the piano. I was a jazz pianist at that stage in my education, so I took a gap year in my jazz piano degree, and I just focused on the piano accordion, and then came back as an accordionist. And since then, I've primarily been playing accordion. So that's been about 10 years or 13 years.
Ah, oh. So
Hmm.
you always had a accordion teacher or
I
like,
had different accordion teachers. So at the time when I picked up the accordion properly, I was living in England for 5 years studying jazz as a bachelor's. And I traveled around to many different places to find teachers that I really loved. And I've always been a person who I'm quite restless, and I very curious. I want to take a little bit from someone, a little bit from someone else, and create my own fusion of that. So there were certain teachers that I came back to over and over again, and some of them I just took a few lessons with. But Karen Tweed is a big one for me. I kept coming back to her. She's an English woman who plays a lot of Irish music on the accordion. And Murray
uh,
Granger is another English teacher who I really enjoyed taking lessons from. And then
ah,
wherever I have been, I've tried to take lessons and learn from, share experiences between accordionists in America and Sweden and England. There, because people play it very differently. And I even have a friend from Serbia that I've learned a lot of accordion approach from. He plays wonderfully Serbian accordion styles.
ah.
I haven't met an
So,
accordionist from India yet, but I will.
uh, so would you like to play something?
Sure,
Yes.
absolutely. So, of course, there are many different kinds of accordion. And this one is called a piano accordion, of course, as you can see with the piano keys. And it's quite a big one, but they come in different sizes.
Yeah.
It's not unlike a harmonium in sound, but the reeds are made from a different material. I had it explained to me from my harmonium designer friend that I think harmonium reeds, the things that makes the sound inside, might be made of brass, while this is,
Yeah.
I think it's steel inside here, so slightly different sound.
Oh,
So,
okay.
mhm. So let me play you a composition of mine that is I wrote during this Corona times, and it's in the style of Swedish folk music. So you get to
Okay.
hear how Swedish folk might sound, but in a Sunniva way.
Okay.
Hmm.
Sure. Amazing. Wow.
Thank you so much. This tune is called "Fly You Fly." It was written for my partner, who's a game developer. So his game is called "Fly You Fly," and I wanted to dedicate this tune to him.
Ah.
And it's we have a dance in Sweden called slängpolska.
Okay.
It's a couples dance, and we danced it by holding each other's hands and looking each other in the eye and leading each other around. It's quite a everyone can be follower or leader. It doesn't matter so much, and
Ah.
it's a very bouncy, beautiful, noble dance. And this tune can be played for that kind of dancing.
Ah.
Hmm.
Okay. So tell us about your parents, your grandparents who were all in music, 7 generations of.
Sure. So yes, my mother was, or still is, a singer, and
Ah,
her mother was a cellist, and her mother was a harpist, and her mother was a harpist. And then I don't remember which. I know there were dancers and so also back in the generations, and they were traveling musicians. So in my great grandmother's generation, they had even a small touring van in the early 20th century in Sweden. It was a very beautiful little bus that they had, and it was called Brandska Kapellet. And they traveled around, and they had music, and they also showed a little cinema screen. So they people in the villages. It was the big happening when my ancestors came because they played music
ah,
and they showed a little bit of cinema for the village people. And
ah,
my grandmother sat and took the money for tickets, and she also played the harp.
oh,
So it was a very special family, and they all had long black hair and beautiful clothes. And when my grandmother, the cellist, they were touring and came to a small place called Ljungskile on the Swedish west coast. My grandfather fell in love with my grandmother. He was in the audience, and so she got stuck there. And sadly, he stopped playing the cello after she married, and never. She took it out on her
oh,
birthday sometime, but after she married, as was tradition, uh, it was it was more so that women gave up their profession. So, uh,
hmm.
but my mother didn't give up her profession. She kept singing, and I'm not planning to give up my profession if I ever get married either. Uh, I will say I am married to my accordion, or my accordion is my baby. Hmm. So I think that's there's more to say about my family, but it's a very long story that also requires to see the pictures and so. But they were all performing.
Ah,
They were
of
street
course.
performance and touring, and they came from Central
Hmm.
Europe, Russia and Poland and Germany, and then up to Sweden. Hmm.
And you've traveled a lot all over the world. You've given a lot of programs, so you must have had an opportunity to, listen to a lot of different
Hmm.
music, world music. You would have met a lot of musicians. So how has been the journey? How has been the inspiration? You know.
So my love of folk music started, of course, with the Swedish folk music when I was little. But then
Mm.
when I was in my teens, I was 14, 15, I started going to the local library in my hometown. My hometown is
Mm.
very small. It was 50,000 people only. I think that's very small for a town in India, for example, right? So I started going there, and they still had CDs. So they had a CD and a world music collection. And
Mm.
I would go through this world music collection, and I took everything I could, with Middle Eastern music, Indian music, Irish music, Cajun music, music from the Americas, from Turkey, from everywhere. And I listened to it between the age of 14 and 18, as long as I lived in my hometown. And
Ah.
I would always dream myself away to these places. I would dream about Ireland when I listened to Irish music, or I would dream about India when I listened to Indian music. And
Ah.
I knew that I was gonna go. I wanted to go. And so when I was 18 and I finished my school, the primary school, I first moved to Ireland to study Irish music for a year and Irish singing. And then I went on to live in England for 5 years to study jazz, but also uh, I made sure I always studied improvised music in the conservatory level because I found that gave me the most substance of study and jazz. But I always studied it in countries which had a nice folk music. So I would play
Ah,
in the evenings. In the daytime, I studied jazz, and in the evenings, I went to the pubs and to folk music events and played folk music.
ah.
And then, of course, I came to America to study a master's of improvisation there, and I kept playing sort of folk music of the Americas and different types. And part of this, even in England, I also studied a bit of Indian music. So
Oh,
I can never say that I was an Indian classical musician because I know how much training is involved in that. But part of my studies of improvisation has been Indian classical music just because I really loved it, and it's a really nice way to improvise in a modal way instead of a jazz way, a chromatic way. Yeah.
so
So
can you listen to some of that improvised music?
can I play some of that? Or
Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
well, I could never stop. Now the way I use my
Uh,
Indian music, I think you cannot really hear it. It's more maybe rhythmical a little bit. And I told you the other day, I said we talked about Rag Bimpalassi, for example, that I'm now studying with my teacher. But I will never say that I know it. I'm just a student of your great musical tradition. Um, it just it I think it Indian improvisation for me gives me a strong sense of the different pitches of a scale and their character. So it's more that I get a better sense and ear for the pitch and its relationship to the sa, if you wish. Yeah. I can play you something else if you want, but I will never say that I'm gonna play you an Indian piece. Not now. Oh, I can't hear you now.
yeah.
Now I
Some other improvised folk music we would like to listen. Yeah.
okay, sure. In a way, also I see composition being very much as composition is slow improvisation. So whenever I compose, which I do a lot, um, it's also it's a way of improvising and making the sounds that my ears hear. So I will play you a tune that I wrote, and I will incorporate improvisation in some sort of C minor way. I don't know what rag that would be, but it's this tune is called "The Pendant," as in a necklace, and it's for my friend David Estes, who is actually a harmonium constructor, and so I wrote it for him. I just want to check if I'm muted because it says my mic is muted, so I got a little worried. Can you hear me? It's bad that I play a whole piece and I'm muted. So let's just check. Uh,
Yeah.
so you can hear me fine. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wonderful.
Oh.
Right.
Oh.
So, little bit of modal improvisation in C minor there.
Very nice.
But still with some themes. So I like to mix in, it should have a theme, but it should also have some freedom to stretch the piece and play with it.
In the instrument also, do you have different accordions? Like,
Yeah.
is a particular accordion more suited for this form of music, or have you uh, tried to, in the construction or what, like for the for playing? Like, can you tell a little bit
Yeah,
about the
sure.
instrument?
This is actually an instrument that is very new to me. I've had it about a month, and
Oh,
um, I got it because it has a certain mellow sound. It's more like talking like this rather than like this. And
ah,
and I got it especially for the playing of mantra music and kirtan and kind of sacred music, because it's this mellow sound blends much better with strings especially. And so if I compare it, this is now I can change. Let me show you these.
ah,
It's like an electric guitar effect. I can change my sounds how I want it, and it goes through different reeds, like a harmonium. So
ah,
now,
okay.
yeah. So usually on all my other accordions, I don't know how well this will come through with it now with the technology, but it can sound very bright. So we can have, it has a real bite
Oh,
to it.
yeah,
So
nice.
this is nice, but it's for a certain kind of playing. Now I press another button and it goes through a tonal chamber inside here, and it sounds more mellow. So I like this better. It's more soothing to my ears, and whenever I play for large audiences and I'm mic'd up, I always
Mm,
want the bite, the treble to be taken down. I really like the mellow, because it
mm,
also blends nicer if I make a chord. Like, I like that better than this. There's a tonal quality that's very different. Um,
correct.
and I also I like how I'll go it down a little bit to give you a crash course in accordion. Um,
Huh.
I can go very very deep with the basses.
Oh, lovely.
It's so great. It's like I say it's a harmonium on steroids. It's like it's an amped up harmonium. But I can also go very mellow. So on my basses, I can sound almost like you don't know if I'm playing right hand or left handed, like this. So they can play together, in this. Now I'm playing right hand and left hand. So you can create a lot of different atmospheres and ranges of pitch and the bellows and the dynamics. I find I have so much in this relatively small instrument.
Mm.
And yeah, what else? I have 3 different accordions, and they all look the same to the
Okay.
eye. If you don't play accordion, you're gonna think, well, she got a new accordion, but it looks like her other one. But they sound different, and they have different mechanisms. And I do like black accordions, so they're all black like this, and they're of the same model as well. Um, so I've gotten used to playing a certain make of accordion, and when you get used to the touch of them, you don't really want to change, because it's like relearning another instrument.
Mm. And how easy is it to handle this accordion?
Yeah,
What would be the weight of the accordion? And when you
yeah,
are doing all the fingering,
yeah.
is there a lot of strain on the fingers movement? Like,
Mm.
what are the tough
Actually,
things into this?
mm,
Can you
mm,
share something about
yeah,
it?
yeah.
How tough it is?
Mm. I think every instrument has its own challenges, right? So um, I do not find that my fingers get strained at all because it's not a percussive instrument; it's a wind instrument. So I don't need to be very hard on my fingers. I just need to have them very flowy. Yeah, of course, I have to articulate, but I never have finger pain. Um, I also don't have back pain from playing because it's always resting on my left knee. The only time you, well, the pain that I experience is when carrying it because I have a backpack for it. So when I tour, and especially when I go in airports, well, now it's crazy to talk about airports because no one is flying anywhere. But when I fly with it, and especially if it's a big airport, I get pain carrying it between terminals. Like 15 minutes kills my back. So I have a trolley. Sometimes I wheel it, and that saves me a lot because I've known accordionists who've had to have their backs operated because it messed so much with their back to carry it. Um, Another thing that it doesn't happen to me, but it's you can it's very easy to raise your shoulder a little bit when playing, maybe this hand. So people get some shoulder pain or some shoulder back pain. But I've been usually saved from that. And you ask how difficult it is to play. Well, it's difficult. It's People get tricked like I did in the beginning, thinking that it's very easy because it looks like a piano. But a piano is a percussion instrument with hammers, while an accordion is this wind instrument that is very bellow sensitive. So pianists coming to the accordion have to start working with the bellows, which is new to them. You can shape a note, you can accent the note, you can make it live, you can make it decay, die. It's very, very different. Um, so for all aspiring accordionists out there, please don't forget the bellows because it's super, super important. It's where the expression lies. And yes, you do need some coordination because you deal with one kind of keyboard here, being the piano keyboard or some other keyboard, and then one button system here that I showed you also, and then the bellows. So all of those things together is a lot to think about, but after a while, most of the systems will become natural to you and go per automatics, right? So you don't always have to think about everything. Like maybe with a finger picking guitar, you start picking and it kind of goes by itself after a while. The best thing about the accordion is that I don't need to intonate, at least, because the keys are the keys. It's you tune the accordion every few years, and it's in a tempered tuning. So that's mine is in the tempered tuning. So it has its challenges, but I'm really when you overstep the first hurdle of getting left hand and right hand together, that's when you start really enjoying yourself. I have students who come to me and they might have started playing the accordion and then they stopped when they tried to put the two together because it was too much, and then you have to start working it up and combining the two hands.
And you also write music for theater, dance, and also there's something about yoga practices,
Oh,
music. Can you
yeah,
share a little bit
sure,
about that?
sure. So I think as a musician in general and as a person, I like to keep inspired and do as many different things as possible, as long as they have to do with music. So what I think of the yoga practices now, it's maybe I play for a yoga class, or I play for the resting afterwards when they're on the floor just lying down, and I will walk around and sing and play my accordion, and maybe I have some chimes in one of my hands and play the left hand accordion. I have a chime in my right hand, and I sing, with some bells on my feet. I'm like a one woman band. And for workshops where people maybe dance, improvise dance, really, if it's something I've never done before, I want to do it. That's how I work. So like yesterday, I was playing for a circus performance, and people were doing juggling and different kind of circus performances, and I was just accompanying and supporting and really trying to make a combined art form. And all these things, it's all movement. So you look at a circus performer, and I look at them like I look at an improvising dancer, and I look at them like a yoga practitioner or a theater performance. It's all just, you deal with emotion, and you deal with space, and you deal with movement and sound together. So it really is not so different. We have to take different approaches, but really they have a lot in common too.
Great. So, can we have a concluding piece, whether an accordion or a song, whatever?
Oh, cool. I haven't planned this, so while I pick up my accordion, I'm gonna think about what I'm gonna play.
Yeah.
I'd like to sing something for you.
Oh, yeah. It'll be great.
So I can play you a Swedish traditional song that's called Trilå, and Trilå, it's just an exclamation that they would say when the fishermen and the sailors in my home area on the coast came back to the families. So when they could see the ships coming into shore, they would sing this song, and maybe the wives or the children and so.
Amazing.
Yeah, and my mother used to sing it when I was little, and now I sing it. So I'll start with the song. Trilolo, 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 trilolo. Här är han, nära till land. Trilolo. Trilolo.
Wow.
That's
That's
Trilo.
nice.
Hmm.
Oh, very nice.
Did it remind you of any Indian raga at all? It's in a very
Oh yeah,
major.
they're all based on ragas.
Yeah,
All music is one and the same finally at the
yeah,
end of the day.
yes,
Yeah. In fact, even these songs, like in India, we have a lot of these songs.
yeah.
People coming back after work, or people going and during the work in the fields.
Ah,
When the farmers are working, or
yeah,
when the rice produce comes. So there is a celebration. There are songs. So these are all, I think, more or less. And like you told me, when your uh, mother went, and during that screening,
mhm,
there's music and all. So it all happens, so much all over the country. There are
yeah,
different forms of theater, along with the theater music. Uh, Teams traveling in the
yeah,
interior. Of course, in those days there used to be a lot of programs all night and all. Then now they're more, more organized in a hall
mhm,
and all that. We are
mhm.
trying. It's
But
moving
also
in a
the more informal songs, like the village songs and
ab-
lullabies and. Mm,
absolutely.
I'm thinking of the different folk music that is so universal in terms of the function of it, like you say in the fields, or they were working songs and songs for the family or for celebrating, and we all.
Yeah. The birth of a child, there'll be some special songs, wedding songs,
Yeah.
especially for weddings.
Oh,
Then brother and sister relationship during
mm,
certain festivals. Lots.
yeah.
Then daughter-in-law and mother-in-law.
There's
They are really
there's there are songs for the
so,
daughters-in-laws.
yeah, hot and cold and all.
Wow. And
Anything.
they would be in different languages, of course.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Each region has its own language, so they all come under that. Some places the musical instruments that accompany the songs are also very, very, different, particularly to that region.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
percussion in classical, we have tabla, but in the interiors you may have a dholak or so like that, or some other, percussions.
Huh.
It all changes from region to region, place to place.
Yeah,
Very,
because
very different.
and we really, as Westerners or Europeans, we must remember that India is such a big place that it's not, it's one country, but it's as big as it's more people than in Europe, as far as I know. So, and in the European music traditions are so different between different countries. So of course you have this too
Mm.
with
But
different.
when I listen to your music and all, we can find a lot of commonalities, especially the improvised.
Yeah,
Mm.
and with every rag or key or tonality, we're trying to set a mood, right?
Yes, exactly.
And I see
Mm.
it as we are painters, and we have a paintbrush, and we make a strike with one color. Did you?
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, a raga is described as it is coming out of the colors.
How is that? I I
There
don't
is
know.
a description, like it comes out of colors, like all the seven notes also have
Yeah.
been given color.
Uh,
Yeah.
does every raga have a color, or is it described in different colors, different times?
No, I'm saying a general definition
Hmm.
that raga is combination of notes or colors.
Yeah.
It creates different ambience, a mood.
Yeah. It really does.
So,
Hmm.
so great, Sunniva. It's been great having you today evening,
Thank you.
and
Um,
we look forward to many more of your, performances and interaction with all the viewers.
Yes.
worldwide.
Okay.
Look
That's
forward to seeing
great.
you. All
Yes,
the
yes.
best. Thank you. See you.
In real life, hopefully someday when we can travel again, when this pandemic is hopefully over, we can more people can meet in real life and so. But for now, we're doing it like this.
Absolutely. Great talking to you, and all the best.
All the
See you
best.
soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.